Hi everyone. Is it too loud? Okay. Ready? So I'm Jen Ashley, and thanks Russell for inviting me to give a talk today. Russell and I met at Skills Matter when I actually was heading the dev outreach team there. I'm retired now, I'll talk about it in a little bit, but most of my day is actually taken up by the work that I do in Women in Technology. So I'm currently the director of Women Who Code in London, and I also am one of the leads for Google Women Tech Makers in London. I'm involved with other groups as well. I've got a degree in mathematics and applied mathematics. I used to actually program in mainframes. That's how I got started. So when I joined Citigroup, I started as a programmer, and then I moved on to other roles. At one point, I was heading the QA team in Singapore. Then I moved to New York and London at the same time, doing business development, but still within the technology team, because really that's the world that I like and enjoy. And that's where I want to stay, even in my retirement days. So I was with Citigroup for a while, and I retired early. And the idea was to, really rest and just enjoy life. But I'm just not the type of person who can just sit and do nothing. I get bored easily, and I think if I did that, I would have just died early. So to avoid that, I kept myself busy. So when I retired, as I said, instead of really resting, I bought a small money transfer company, like Western Union, but a smaller version of it. And at the same time, we were also running other companies on travel, newspaper, publishing, e-commerce. And I was doing that for like a few years, and I said, this is really not retiring. So I retired again. But as I said, I'm not the type of person who can just sit and do nothing, you get bored. During my second retirement, someone mentioned meetup.com to me. And initially, I didn't even check it out because I thought it was a dating site. So I avoided it, didn't even log on to the website. And then someone said, no, there are tech events there. So that's the only time I actually checked it out. And I ended up attending initially, and then eventually leading some of the tech meetup groups. And as we all know, this is like the typical picture that we see at meetups and conferences. Again, these are some of the events that I've been to. I think this was a React.js meetup at Facebook, and there were like 300 plus people attending, and there's probably like 5 or 6 women. I had a chance to go to Apple's developer conference in San Francisco, so it's great. I saw some female developers there. But this is the picture that I took when we were going to the main hall. So I said to myself, I probably should just, devote my time and my resources to supporting women in tech, because I saw that, there is really, an imbalance in terms of like numbers. And, am I blaming anyone? No. But I think there's something has to be done, definitely. So I actually got involved with Women Who Code. Women Who Code started in San Francisco in 2011, and we're now in 20 countries and 60 plus cities, and it's growing. I think worldwide we've got 137,000 plus members now. And yeah, it's going really well. I'm also involved, as I said, with Google Women Tech Makers, and the idea really is to just support women who are already in the industry and to get more women to get into tech. I'm also part of Ada's List, another women in tech networking group. And really it's because of Ada Lovelace, who is the first programmer. I know some people will argue that she's not the first programmer, that we're claiming it. He's the first programmer. As we're all aware, in most of the conferences, events, panels and list of speakers are highly male-dominated, but it's obviously changing. So there are events like this where they're talking about women's empowerment, but it's a panel of men. And I think this event actually got canceled because there were a lot of criticism. Another one. And you can understand why I'm like passionate about what I'm doing now. So what we do with all the women's groups that I'm involved with is we offer a lot of workshops to upskill women. And I'm very particular about supporting beginners especially, because we're not going to be able to change the numbers if we just concentrate on women who are already in the industry. So if you want to change the ratio, we really need to get a fresh sort of supply of female developers in there. So these are some of the workshops that we've done in the past. And we always encourage women to kind of lead the workshops as well. We don't exclude men in the conversation. We're always welcoming of allies who wants to support, for example, workshops, who want to lead workshops or be coaches at our events. That's always welcome. But I make it a point that for the events that we organize, we make sure that attendees are women, because as I said, if you want to change the ratio, we need to make sure that we're actually giving women opportunities to upskill themselves. So these are some of the events that we've done in the past. This, I think, was at Google for International Women's Day event. Some of the workshops that I've done in the past. And as I said, I'm always welcoming of beginners and supportive of women who wants to get into tech. If they're showing a passion for it, why not give them the opportunity to do that? So these attendees are all beginners, never have done any coding in the past, never have created a website in the past. So this is really just a simple HTML, CSS workshop, but for me it's very satisfying to actually see that women, especially young women, gaining confidence in what you're doing. Sorry, the feedback screen's not working. Okay. So yes, this was a great event. I think we supported around 20 plus women in here. Some of the events that we've done in the past. Okay, so you probably can tell I'm not the type who just does simple things. So not being content with smaller events, I actually organized and created a Women in Tech conference as well, which started last year. It's called TechNoDay. So we held it back in March of last year for the first time. We had 400 plus women attending, and because it was successful, I repeated it back in October during Ada Lovelace Day. And we held it again last March, and we had 1,200 plus registered. So I'm just going to play a short video just to show you what the So last March, we had our very first TechNoDay, a brand new event that was focused on women in technology.
This is actually what NASA do, meetings on Mars.
You want to write code to learn how to solve a problem.
She never ever fails because she believes in what she's offering the client.
If you're a woman initiating your startup or currently thinking about it, this is a great opportunity for you to learn, network, and get great tips from the women-led startups who are going to be there.
I'm a broadcast journalist.
My profession is marketing.
My background is teaching.
I'm a developer, recruitment director.
I'm Italian, and in Italy there's nothing like this.
I went for the HTML, CSS workshop. Amazing. I did one of the beginner workshops, the Ruby one, it was really good.
The free workshops and the talks were all fantastic, very inspirational.
Specifically hearing from lots of really empowered women that have gone out and have done these kinds of things, that it's possible.
There's going to be a lot of workshops, and you might even have the opportunity to find your first co-founder or your first developer.
It was great. I didn't expect the room to be packed and people standing in the back, and it was full.
If you're a student, this is a great time for you to connect with amazing companies that are going to be present that day.
It's been a really, really amazing day.
I think I want to start to code now.
Totally insightful, and I feel really confident this is something we can do.
This event is totally free to attend. All you need to do is go to the website, register, and we'll see you at TechNoDay on October 10th. So there was a video from last year, promo video that we used to promote the next one. that conference is actually a free conference because the last thing I want to see is for the ticket cost to be a barrier for women to access the talks and the workshops that we offer. During the event, we actually offer a lot of like 2-hour hands-on workshops, and I think last time we had around 40 workshops. And we're very lucky, as I said, because there are companies who support the event. Otherwise, I won't be able to run it, and keep it free. And I'd like to keep it free as long as I can. So this is the team from Hotels.com. They supported us last year and also the last event. And there are companies like Open Market, for example. So Andy, who's one of the speakers I think today. So Andy Balam, he's been involved with TechNoDay for the past 2 events, if I'm not mistaken. So they offered workshops, and the whole team was there to support some of the attendees who wants to learn about. I think the last one was about Java streams, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we've been lucky in terms of that. But every 6 months, I always have a worry that we're not going to get enough to actually run the conference. But so far, it's been going well. But plugging, if there are companies who want to support this, please get in touch. So as I said, we offer a lot of workshops. These are just some of the workshops so we did last March. This is a small subset of what we've offered. So aside from the conference, I also created a Women in Tech Scholarship. The idea really is to get some women who can't afford to attend a bootcamp and pay like £10,000, to go through the program. Obviously, there are women who can afford that, and I encourage them to go ahead and do that. But for this particular scholarship, I'm actually trying to focus on those who cannot afford that amount. Because aside, obviously, from paying £10,000, you still have to, pay bills on top of that when you're actually out of work for a few months. So we started with, this is very new, so we started with the Swift truck for now. And we have, Rowan, sorry, can you just maybe? So I had around 150 plus women applying for the program, and we were able to take, I think, around 30. So this is the first session that we did. Luckily, Net-a-Porter actually are still hosting the bootcamp because it's a 9-week bootcamp, and we do it weekly at Net-a-Porter. So again, if there are companies who wants to host this type of events, you're welcome to get in touch. We're going to extend that to other tracks like web development or Android development or DevOps as well. Why am I doing this? As I said, I'm retired twice now. I can just really enjoy life. I go shopping, and just have fun. But I'm doing this really because I'm passionate about it, and I just want to be able to turn that dial and change the ratio. Because we can't have this picture anymore. It has to be diverse and inclusive, I think, in everything that we're doing nowadays. And if we're not going to do this now, when are we going to do it? Obviously, we cannot change the past, but we can change the future. And we just need to keep moving forward. And obviously, we women can do it, but more importantly, I really would like to encourage men to, to be part of this and be allies and support the initiatives that we're doing. And as I said, we've been lucky because there are already a lot of allies who are doing that at the moment. I'm just going to show you this last video, then I'll take questions afterwards. Oops.
If you look at Twitter's user base, it reflects basically all of humanity.
There's no doubt in my mind that technology jobs are critical to every part of the economy, every part of the way we live, the way we work.
If we are somehow subtly or systemically excluding women, we are really cutting down on the size of the workforce.
Computer science is changing our whole world. Unfortunately, it's a very undiverse field. It's actually quite segregated.
This is both a gender as well as an ethnicity issue.
It's when the idea of the nerd genius came to the fore, and that's exactly when women started declining in their representation.
We imagine someone sort of sitting at a keyboard typing all day. We don't realize how much design and creativity goes into making software.
You don't have to be antisocial. You don't have to want to not sleep. You don't have to want to spend all of your time with a computer. You don't have to be male.
I think people are sometimes surprised when I tell them I work in computer science, just because it is a male-dominated industry.
As someone who studied rocket science, I can tell you that coding is not rocket science.
Writing software is just a tool to actually go build something cool that you want to build.
To be able to just build a product from the ground up, to make something exist where it didn't exist before, has been really exciting.
There's like so many like programs and websites now where you can just like teach yourself.
It was actually a really important thing for us as a company to establish having women on the team. The greater the empathy you have with the people that are trying to use the product, the better the product is.
I absolutely think that women can be just as great as men at programming. And the great thing is I can look the way I do, I can wear lipstick and write just as good code as you, and people need to be comfortable with that.
At conferences, there's been sexually explicit comments made towards speakers, towards attendants. It's gross. It's despicable.
We're not seen as part of the boys' club.
There's this assumption there, like, that I brought the coffee.
People would assume I was a recruiter or talk down to me.
I can't think of a single software product that would only be used by men. So it's hard to imagine that it would be appropriate to have any team that was only men, or only women for that matter.
Important mantra is you are not your user.
Unfortunately, the first round of airbags killed a lot of women and children. And it turns out that the airbags were developed for the average specs of the engineer on the team. And those engineers happen to all be white men.
You have to be impatient. You have to say, this has to happen now. We have to do what we can now. Whatever it takes to move the number now, we have to do that now.
Great. I hope that's been useful. And as I said, I can take some questions. There's a bit of time to do that if there are questions from anyone.
We're getting into the spirit here of being interactive, which is really what ACCU is all about. So Jen has laid the scene, and now do we have some opinions, questions?
Yeah, opinions, questions.
We've got one here. I'll start with this one, and then I'll go get the balls.
I was just thinking, one of the issues, of course, is going to be getting girls in school into it. I just have some anecdotal evidence that I think in the East that there's a lot of women in engineering as opposed to the West, I think. And I just wondered what sort of moves you know of that are trying to focus on actually balancing it in school. I suppose Code Club is one part, but do you have any knowledge of any?
There are actually a lot of initiatives being done that's focused on young girls. So there's one organization called STEMETS. They're focused on, I think, 16 to, or even maybe younger, 16 to 23-year-olds. And they're a good organization. I recommend that if you want to find out more about their work, that you do that. And of course, the government, I think, has to do a lot more to support this. Not just educating, young people in tech, but focusing as well on girls, because I think there's been a lot of stories where teachers and parents themselves discourage girls, from taking up STEM subjects, for example, which doesn't help, obviously.
So following up on that one, so if we need to encourage people in, obviously we'd rather not need to be doing that. Given that we are, how do we avoid the perception that it's not something for girls and therefore we have to do something special for girls? How do we avoid
The thing
labelling
is,
it in that process?
yeah, my opinion on that is, I think we've been in a situation where, you know, the number has been really imbalanced for a long time. As I said, you know, there's no one in particular to blame, but I think we need to do something about it. And if it's needed that you actually have, you know, special events for girls or women, I think it has to be done. It has to be welcomed. I know it's forcing the issue, but if you don't, sometimes you're not going to get any results. That's my own personal view, anyway. And I know it's uncomfortable, you know, for some people to see that, and not just for men. You know, even some women really feel uncomfortable with the fact that sometimes we're treating women, you know, especially, you know, with regards to workshops and all that, we're giving them so much opportunity. But as I said, we've been in this situation for a long time. I think it's time to change that.
Hi, is this on? Okay, cool. So as individuals, I think we can feel like we don't really have much influence. I'm right in front of you.
Who's asking the question?
Hello.
Right.
Yeah, as individuals or individual developers, hi. We can feel like well, what can I do? So what can we do?
As I said, we're always welcoming allies to get involved with, you know, some of the projects that we do. We're always looking for people who want to lead workshops. As I said, you know, Andy Balaman team has been good examples of that. So we want to upskill women, whether it's on the beginner level or a more advanced level. So yeah, just reach out, and you know, if you want to get involved with coaching or leading workshops or mentoring, you know, just let us know. I think that's your first step, really. Oh, there's one in front as well. Hi, Andy. Oh, Andy.
From what you've seen of this conference, do you have any ideas of how we can improve our diversity here?
For this conference in particular, and not only this conference, actually, I work with other conferences as well. I was at the CTJS conference recently, and I gave a talk there as well. So we're trying to work with conference organizers to improve the ratio. You know, as I said, it's not going to happen overnight, but I guess it's, you know, like Russell has done, he's reached out to me. So we're going to try, hopefully in the next few years, to help change the ratio of conferences like this.
So my question is, do you support affirmative action, aggressive affirmative action, where people who might be somewhat less qualified are preferred because they're female in universities and other arenas? And what would you say that? How would you say that would translate to, say, industry?
Sorry, can you?
So I'm talking about affirmative action, and by that I mean giving women preference, even if their credentials were somewhat less than a man's, as an interim way of moving women into.
They're applying for jobs.
Yes,
for example.
well, jobs would be harder, but I'm starting with like universities and where government could have an effect.
I think in terms of encouraging more women to get into technology, when it comes to like education and upskilling, as I said, sometimes we need to force the issue. But when it comes to, you know, applying for jobs, I think it still has to be based on skills, but there are ways, you know, that you can eliminate unconscious biases when you're actually taking in candidates. I would say don't hire someone because she's a woman. Hire the best candidate for the job, but make sure that your hiring process and your interviewing process actually, you know, eliminate some of the unconscious biases that, you know, that are inherent in every one of us, not just, you know, amongst guys, but with women as well. Does that help?
So, where do you see the biggest problem at the moment? Are the mistakes we're making at the recruitment level? Is it at the retention level? Or is it at the career advancement level? Where is the real problem area at the moment?
Okay, I think there are a lot of factors that's contributing to where we are right now. So one is when we're talking about young girls, as I said, you know, they're discouraged at a young age to pursue STEM subjects. With regards to women who left the industry because they got married, you know, had kids, I think going back is a bit difficult because some of the environments that we have in companies right now are not very welcoming. And in terms of, like numbers, I always get contacted by companies who wants to hire women. And the problem really is there's not a lot of women compared to men in the industry right now. So, they shouldn't be wondering why there's not a lot of women applying. And that's why we actually need to do something like this to change the ratio so that you get more candidates who are women. Does that answer your question fully? Or
Can you give an example of unconscious bias? Can you give an example of unconscious bias going because beyond the very obvious, she's a girl and she cannot do the job?
Okay, so when we talk about unconscious biases, it's not just about gender. For example, there's like a study that was done where candidates were obviously, asked to submit their CV with their names on it. So names that are not like Western sounding actually get less chances, for example. So it's not just about gender. So we have a lot of unconscious biases with, race, religion, etc., which obviously need to be addressed. There's a very good video on unconscious bias that I can share with Russell. He can share with you. It's actually a very good video to watch. For you to understand what are out there in terms of unconscious biases, which we all have.
What can we do to be allies to women at this conference over the next 4 days?
Okay, good question. I'm wondering if any woman in the room can answer that. Anyone who wants to answer that? Yeah, go ahead. There you go. I'd like to hear from someone who's actually here to attend.
If people could stop meeting me and doing that face when I tell them that I'm a developer, like that face where you go, ooh, that's impressive for you. Like, that would be brilliant.
So that's one good example.
Just talk to us about our work, like any normal geek.
Anyone else? Okay. Any other questions?
Hi. You touched upon education and its role in achieving diversity in this field. I would like to focus more on very early education and childcare. I have a young daughter, and I see a constant pattern regarding toys that are very different and very targeted towards boys and girls. And I think my daughter has the smallest doll collection because I keep trying to push STEM toys and Legos and building blocks and robotic toys. What's your opinion on early education and its impact long-term on achieving a higher percentage of women in the industry?
Okay, actually I was just having a conversation with a mother about that yesterday who's got a young daughter. And what I was saying to her was, I think every child should be given a chance and should be exposed, to all these opportunities. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't force them to take it up unless they are showing a passion for it, because you're doing more damage than good.
Hi. So I was at this. Oh wow, this is going right back at me. Yeah, let me do that. So I was at one of these events in a supermarket where there were stalls where children were selling stuff they made or sourced and all that, and I was trying to engage with them. And almost every stall I went to, it was you'd go and talk to the student, and it would be. Even if you're talking to a girl, it would be a boy taking over the conversation most of the time. So it was in an order of the pecking order was a white male, somebody with a different race, and then women. And I think it was completely, it was quite interesting to see that. And as my wife puts it, it's, women are, from very young age, they're programmed to be good girls, if you know what I mean. And how do we change that? I think it touches one of your questions about, it's very early on.
Yeah, I think it's summed up by one word: education, and not just educating young people, but educating adults in particular. I think that's the most important part, because we're the ones influencing these young people. So definitely, education, I think, is the key. And that experience is really not just experienced by young girls. For example, I attended a workshop where we were building a solar panel charger, and I was the first one to actually arrive at the workshop. I was chatting with the instructor, and he was very keen and interested, blah blah blah, in the conversation. And then two guys came in to attend the workshop as well. And then throughout that workshop, I think the focus of the instructor actually was directed towards the two guys who was with me for the workshop. So again, there's that bias, I think, when there's a mixed group. So it was very interesting. I wasn't offended. I think I've grown a thick skin now, to get offended by that. But it was just very interesting to see that.
I got one. So, obviously, we all work in tech, so tech is the sector we care about. However, I want to know your opinion if there is something special about tech, or just our exposure is bigger in this sector. Because, for example, there are other sectors where women are a minority compared to men, for example, construction, or sectors where women are a majority, for example, kindergarten teachers. So are we just not exposed to some sort of push in those sectors, or is there something special about tech, and tech is being focused more heavily?
I think there are a lot of industries where there's a great imbalance in terms of women and men, and I'm sure that I'm focusing on the gender topic, but as I said, diversity inclusion is not just about gender. I just want to stress that. But the work that I do, because I only have 24 hours in a day, like everyone has, so I have to focus on something where I think I'm going to be more effective. But yeah, to answer your question, there are a lot of industries where this same effort has to be done as well. So it's not just especially about tech, but we obviously care about this a lot because we're all in technology.
Hi. Yes, I just wanted to reply to this. I'm always confused when the topic of nursery comes up. I used to work in nursery before entering tech, and yes, they have gender imbalance as well, but we always point to them like this is just a thing, and the same discussions that are happening here are happening there in other proportions. So I kind of feel bad when this is just used as a pointing over to other groups without kind of reflecting on what's happening there, because we don't have a lot of insight because we're not working in that field.
Yeah, I think it's a problem of society in general, right? Not just a particular sector of society. Any more? Oh, there's two more.
First person over there, please.
Hi. I'd like to encourage people involved in recruitment and management of women to introduce as much objectivity, and not just the removal of subconscious biases, but actual quality measures or commit rates, anything objective that you can, because I'm certainly experiencing self-deprecation disproportionately amongst female candidates and female employees. So we've got to look to ourselves in what our definition of what good is, because and measure that objectively.
Yeah, I agree with that. And there are a lot of companies nowadays who have changed their processes to make sure that their recruitment and interviewing process is objective. And there are a lot of for example, sites where you can put in your job description and see if it's biased in terms of gender and all that. So there's a lot of tools nowadays that can be used, and it's good that companies are actually waking up to the fact that they need to change, and also companies who are working with recruitment companies, for example, are pushing their agencies to make sure that they're actually given candidates with sort of an equal ratio of men and women. And some companies have even gone to the process of making sure that they don't, people don't specify their gender or their names or whatever, so that you're really eliminating, biases. And there's been a lot of, and I think because of this push from companies themselves, there's been a lot of recruitment agencies who've reached out to us. I'm always in meetings most of the day, meeting up with companies like this, and there's been a lot of interest in terms of finding out how they can actually change their process to make sure that we're getting an equal ratio in terms of candidate pool for companies.
Over here. Over here.
Hi.
Circling back to education and character development for young female developers, do you think the lack of promoting role models is a factor influencing this? Because at all kinds of events that touch upon this, I keep seeing references to Ada Lovelace or Grace Hopper. I think we should promote more role models for women in technology that are more current, and encourage young women to aspire to become like them.
Yeah, definitely. I think we need to have a lot more women in leadership positions because, you're right. Young people will be looking up, or young girls in particular, will be looking for role models, and if they don't see that, they'll think, okay, the norm is, it's just men up there in front and all that. There's a saying, you cannot be what you cannot see. So if they're not seeing, a good role model out there, then yeah, we're really not doing a good job. Some of the work that we do as well is to encourage more women to take up leadership positions. It's I know this all sounds good, but it's obviously a process that will take a long time. We've been in this situation for a long time, as I said, and it will take a long time as well to kind of change it. But at least we're doing something, and the important thing is do something. I'm happy to talk about these issues, but I'd rather focus on something that is really tangible and that will bring in results and actually help change the ratio.
Hi. There have been a few remarks made also from yourself about how the situation in tech and software development relates to society at large.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Norway. The top 3 government ministers in Norway are all women. My children went to a kindergarten where almost half the staff were men. So arguably the Nordic countries are, by many measures, the most equal countries in the world. That said, I have a very small chart on my phone here, but in Norway and Sweden and Finland, we have about 20% STEM graduates are female, but in Algeria, Tunisia, the UAE, and Albania, that's nearer 50%. So
okay.
I think it's the remark about kindergartens that was made earlier, I think is very interesting. This is very particularly a problem for tech, and the correlations between how that works and society at large are highly counterintuitive and complicated, and we need to be very careful about making generalizations.
Yeah, I mean, there is a big difference, especially with the West and Asia, for example. Like, I'm from the Philippines originally, but I've been living in London for like 18 years now. But back there, I didn't even see that there's a problem in terms of numbers, because like in the university I went to, there seems to be a good balance. So yeah, there are obviously differences, geographically, and there will be different solutions to that as well. And congratulations, because you're doing better in terms of like leadership roles, I guess.
Can I add something on the role models question? I think for people who want to make and create things, perhaps the better way to go is role projects, where they can see women involved in actually making and doing on a kind of project that kind of really fires your passion, because leaders is not what a lot of us want to be. We want to be there getting our hands dirty and doing, but they're not the people who come out as prominent. So they're not actually a role model for what a lot of us creators love to do.
I think it's still a role model, but obviously
Yes, but
at a
they're not
different
as
level.
prominent
But
as
I agree with you.
leadership roles.
And we have to tackle this from all different directions anyway, from leadership.
Puts that in the context of the work that they're doing.
Yeah,
rather
because
than
you're
them
saying
as
that
a
they can
person.
relate more to that person rather than someone who's high
Yeah.
up. They think they cannot reach.
Yeah,
I
and
guess
the
that's what
doing
you're
rather
saying.
than
Yeah.
who's doing.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely. I mean, we should really have a lot more women involved in in terms of leading workshops and being role models out there in general. But as I said, allies are important, because I think women and young girls need to see as well that guys are actually there and are actually supportive of what we're doing.
Yeah, I have almost 50% women in my dev team now, completely by chance, and most of the complaints about discrimination have been towards other women in the company, and most of the people that discouraged them from going into STEM were also female, talking to them about sort of their past. And I was wondering if we need more sort of diversity in the diversity conversation, because it seems to be very...
I actually don't disagree with you in that, because I would admit, women can be bitchy to each other, and that's not good. That needs to change as well, for sure.
I think none of it was actually that ill-willed. It was just sort of, oh yeah, you're weird because you're not in a traditional, you're breaking into a traditional male context, and also sort of diverse opinion. Like at diversity meetings, I see a lot of, well, it kind of goes back to John Lakos's question, a lot of people pushing for diversity hires, especially within universities, and I'm not sure if it's a filter bubble, but a lot of the STEM women in my life do not want that and do not feel like that opinion is welcome in diversity meetings, that they do not want diversity hires, or they do not want a leg up, because when they come to...
because people feel that it's, what do you call this, what's the term? Oh, God, I forgot the term. Sorry. Patronizing, that's what that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that happens. But should we let that stop us from doing this? I don't think so.
Just coming back to John Lakos's question that was just referred to about whether positive discrimination is okay. A lovely answer I heard to that recently is to say, not think about positive discrimination, but think about if you've got two candidates who are equally well qualified and one of them has had an easier route through, then to recognise that the other person has succeeded despite challenges, and so to use diversity or inclusivity as a tiebreaker rather than a specific decision-making in its own right, and that might sort of gradually start to redress the balance a bit. So I just encourage that as a suggestion to consider. Another thing we do in our team, but not our company as a whole, is to try to anonymise CVs, so when we're shortlisting. And it's fascinating, I see in myself, when you get to page 3 and something has been missed from the anonymising, and I just feel it in myself, the conclusions that I leap to and then sort of berate myself to afterwards. So I do think it's a really important thing. And if you have any way that you can encourage your HR departments, people teams, whatever you call them, to help you by anonymising CVs before you look at them, you'll find it makes an incredible difference.
Yeah. Just want to make sure we're not running. Oh, okay. We've got like 7 minutes, so we can take in a few more questions. Or opinions.
Hello. I just wanted to say that some of us guys are gay. We could be a first port of call if you don't want to go to your butch colleagues. We're here. We're queer.
Yes.
Wider than just male, female, and queer. Any other questions? Any other comments?
Okay, great. Thanks for listening, and I hope that's been helpful.
Please thank you.